Lemonada.
You can listen to every episode of This Life of Mine ad-free with Lemonada Premium. You'll get access to a quick-fire round of questions with this week's guest, and I mean quick-fire, really quick, like 2 minutes or less. Just tap that subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or head to lemonadapremium.com to subscribe on any other app. That's lemonadapremium.com. Hello and welcome to This Life of Mine, the show where our incredible guests pick the places, people, possessions, music and memories that have made them who they are. Joining me today is a giant of the fashion world, known for transforming the fortunes of Gucci in the 90s before setting up his own eponymous fashion brand in the 2000s. That label became hugely successful, not only financially, but also in terms of its impact on popular culture. Daniel Craig insisted on getting 007 suits made by him. Michelle Obama wore one of his designs to meet the Queen, while Jay-Z titled a track in his honor. Not content with his achievements in fashion alone, he began an incredible career as a filmmaker, writing, directing and producing not one but two Oscar-nominated movies, A Single Man and Nocturnal Animals. He joins us today at what can only be described as an intriguing point in his life, having recently sold his fashion empire to be a full-time filmmaker. I cannot wait to talk about his selections today. He is, very much like myself, regularly described as the king of sex. Are you ready to start?
I am, and I love sitting across from the king of sex.
Well then, let's go.
I've always thought of you as the king of sex.
Take us away.
I'm Tom Ford, and welcome to This Life of Mine.
That was very good.
Why, yes.
That was
I can do a voice. Jack is always like, whenever he hears a commercial or an ad or something, because I've always done them for my own fragrance, he's like, why is your voice like that? And I said, well, because we all have our regular life voice, and then we have our voice that we use sometimes when we're doing a voiceover.
See, mine goes the other way. See, I think I become more,
yours goes higher.
I go higher.
No.
Because I do. Mine goes, I get to a point where I get so sort of nervous. I can say, hi, and welcome to the show. I'm going to like that.
No, you don't.
Well, I'm going to.
You know, I was quite friendly, I guess towards the end of her life, maybe the last 10 years with Lauren Bacall. And she had such a great voice. And she told me that she did that. And, you know, she immediately at dinner broke into those fancy feast cat food commercials. And so she had a great voice, but she also told me that she worked hard to always listen to herself when she spoke on camera and lower her voice.
Well, it's good to know that you've got something to fall back on.
Yes, voiceover.
As a voiceover.
Cat food.
For sure.
Cat food
you could do the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, we're here in London.
In London.
We're
James,
in London.
You're back in London.
I'm back in London. How long did you live in London before you moved to Los Angeles?
22 years. But I also simultaneously, I moved to the Gucci offices here in maybe 1996, 97. But I had been living in Milan for 4 years from 90 to 94. And at the same time, I was living in Paris. And so I shuttled back and forth between Paris, Milan, and London, but really lived primarily in London once I moved to the Gucci offices here.
And how do you feel being here now? Just
I love it. I love London. The thing I love about London, the culture, the irreverence, the humor, the intelligence, the sophistication. I mean, LA took on a totally different feel for us. Well, for Jack, you know, when Richard died and he was sick. So we went back to Los Angeles because Richard, my partner of 35 years and husband of 9, was so ill and all of his doctors were in LA. And that's why we moved back. And so the whole last 5 years of our time in Los Angeles was just Cedars-Sinai and hospitals. And so we had to escape. We had to get out.
We'll talk more about the impact of Richard's death on you and your son, Jack, later in the show. But whilst we're talking about places, why don't we start With the place that you've selected for us, tell us the place that you've selected, which is significant in your life.
Well, the place is Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is where I was born in Texas, but I really grew up in Santa Fe. When I close my eyes and I think about where I want to spend the last years of my life, it's generally there. It's something about the smell, the feeling of the air, the familiarity.
Describe the house for me. What was the house that you grew up in? What was the house?
It was an
like?
adobe house, which is very traditional. Santa Fe is one of the few places in America that has a unified architectural style. It's a law. I mean, you can only build your house in certain colors, and it's Pueblo-style architecture. So our house in Santa Fe is a very traditional 3-foot thick wall adobe house built around a courtyard, and it's beautiful.
Is it true that when you were 6, your parents used to leave the house and you would rearrange the furniture?
Yes, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I still do it. My father's no longer around, but my mother, if she leaves the house, I move things around. I did it as a kid.
But as a 6-year-old, so I have a 6-year-old.
I could push and shove. I could get a sofa down a hall and into another room. I don't know how I did it, but I could. And I think they realized that when I did it looked better. So they let me. I
can't get my 6-year-old to put her shoes on the right feet. Let alone the idea of her being like,
well, she's not going to grow up.
Let's move this coffee table near the chaise.
Well, she's not going to grow up and go to architecture school and become a designer. Objects. I was explaining to Jack the other day, I walked in and I said, that's driving me crazy. And he said, Dad, it doesn't have to be perfect. And I said, Jack, it does have to be perfect. For someone who's enormously visual, it is as though you are sticking something into my chest. It's pain. It actually causes me, bad lighting causes me pain. It's painful for visual people to stare at things that don't fit into their aesthetic.
But this has always been the case. There wasn't of course. When did you start?
Always.
How old were you when you started wearing a suit?
Oh my God. I was tortured, taunted, teased, beat up as a little kid because I dressed. I didn't have a book bag. I carried an attaché case at age 7.
Stop.
No, I did.
What's in the case? Like
my
a carton
books,
of juice and some Lego.
My pencils, my whatever.
Right.
But it was an attaché case. It wasn't a
suit
book bag. Certainly a jacket, very trim pair of pants. It was the 60s. Monk strap shoes. I mean, everyone dressed in a much more, you didn't go to shoes in tennis shoes, trainers, sneakers, whatever we call them. You went to school in hard shoes. So I was incredibly visual, and I'm still tortured by it. It's something that tortures you because you're never happy. Because perfection, when you achieve it, there's no such thing. And when you achieve it for just seconds because the flower dies, somebody moves the table. It's something that it really can't be achieved. And when it is achieved, it's so fleeting that I think in a lot of ways it can leave you feeling empty. And so sometimes I wish that it was an affliction that I did not have.
Let's talk about New York in the 70s, because if I could go back to any time in history, I think that's where I'd go.
I would recommend it.
I mean, arguably it's New York's most glamorous decade, I think. And you went into
I caught the tail end of it, and it shaped my life. And I feel so incredibly lucky that I managed to do that. I was 17, 18, 19 years old. So, leaving Santa Fe, New Mexico and going anywhere would have seemed exciting.
Sure.
But I caught the tail end of all of that, of Studio 54. And Diane von Furstenberg asked me the other day, she said, I'm not going to do her accent, but, how long have we known each other? And I said, well, Dion, I met you in 1979. I said, you don't remember me. I was dating Fred Hughes, and I remember you, but you don't remember me. So I was exposed to all of these people that, that I'd idolized for so long. And it was an incredible time.
So how did you get yourself into the center of that action, into Studio 54?
It was really literally like something from a film. There was a guy in my art history class who was always coming up to me, talking to me, chatting to me, hanging on to me. And I just thought, poor guy has no friends. I had no idea that he was gay. I had no idea gay people really existed.
Right.
I had many girlfriends up until that point throughout school. And I just thought he had no friends. I was sitting in my dorm room and it was like a film. I said, please, God, let something happen. And I went to the door, and there was this guy in a jacket and tie, and he said, hi, do you want to go to studio? And I said, yes. And I was very, what you call in America, preppy at the time. I put on my jacket, went to a friend's house. Do you want to hear this whole story?
Yes, absolutely. I do.
Went to a friend's house of his. He said, we've got to stop by a friend's house. When they greeted each other at the door, they kissed on the mouth. I thought, And I thought, oh, God, I think all of these guys are gay. And it was something that I guess deep down I had always been curious about and maybe pushed back. And then somebody said, oh, Andy's coming by. We're all going up to studio. And Andy Warhol came by and came in for a split second, and we all went out and got in those great Cadillacs that used to have the jump seats, and we went to Studio 54, and we jumped out of the thing, and somebody put their hand up, and the crowds, they actually literally pushed people away, and in we went. They needed 18-year-old, attractive, gay boys some nights to sort of round out if you had too many socialites and too many people in dinner jackets, or you had Princess Grace, or you had so-and-so. It was one of the most amazing places. I mean, when we talk today about, transgender, transsexual, or the kind of freedom that we're now starting to celebrate with being able to be who you are, it was there. You could be anything. There would be two guys having sex on the floor in front of a man and a woman in evening dress. It was a completely free environment. And women then were kissable. People were kissable looking, and that was the beauty standard. Today, our beauty standard is hard. It's off-putting. It's angry. It's depressed.
Yeah.
You look at ads today, and everyone looks miserable in their $4,000, $5,000, $20,000 dress. They look miserable and sad. Then they were spinning around. They were happy. They were smiling. You look at old ads from that period. People are smiling, and they're classically beautiful. Today, if you're too classically beautiful, as either a man or a woman as a model, you look commercial. Everyone wants people that look sad,
Why
depressed.
is that, do you think? Why is that?
I don't know. I mean, it must say something about maybe the general sort of dystopian vibe that younger people have today, that really truly do believe the world's going to be a worse place when they grow up than now. Now, I think if you're smiling, people think you're an idiot. They think, oh my God. I also
think people think you're lying. I think people think you're lying and you're fake.
I think people think you're an idiot. I think, only an idiot could be happy with everything going on in the world. And by the way, horrible things are going on in the world.
Let's turn a corner now. Let's move on to your next pick, which is music. I was intrigued as to what you'd choose. I don't know, because I didn't know what it would be. I was really interested. I didn't know whether it would be a piece of classical music, a pop song, an opera. I didn't know. So tell us the piece of music that's significant to you.
Slave time that it came out is stuck in my mind. I can feel it was in the summer that I really became attached to it. I don't know. How do you explain why you love of listening to that.
Is this the sort
Richard hated it. I would constantly be like, oh, God, is this Slave to Love again? And, yeah, I love it.
But was it a song that Richard liked, but he just didn't want it on repeat?
Richard loved Adele. Well, towards the end of his life, we both, we all love Adele. But he didn't really like anything on repeat. Right. I like things on repeat.
Same. Tell me about when you first met Richard.
It was interesting because we'd seen each other at a fashion show earlier. I was a young assistant, and he was, at the time, the fashion editor of Women's Wear Daily, and he was at a real career high. I didn't know this. I just looked up, and this man with the most piercing blue eyes, they were really the color of water, was staring at me, and it was like he was looking right through me, and it freaked me out. So I bolted. And about a week later, the woman I worked for said, you need to take these clothes up to Women's Wear Daily, and they're photographing them, etc. And they were shooting up on the roof. I took the elevator up. I got out. There was Richard. And Richard was busy telling a friend of his, that's the guy that I saw at the show. I'll go with him. And he got in the lift with me. And he was chattering away, batting his eyelashes, acting kind of silly. I was standing completely calmly, just looking at him. But in my head, it was just click, 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 click. Oh my God, you're the one. And that was it. By the time the elevator hit the ground, we went out on 3 or 4 dates. Both of our friends were sadly dying of AIDS at the time. So we would have a date. I would go to one hospital. He would go to another hospital. We would spend the night with them. So we were very cautious about sleeping together because at that moment in time, it was very dangerous to do so. And so we had quite a few dates before that happened. But a month after meeting, we were living together, and we were together 35 years until he died.
I feel like from when you met to what was about to happen in your life, it wasn't long after that you moved to Gucci.
About
and
5
then,
years.
like you say, you're moving to Milan
5
and
years, yeah.
London, all those things. Was having such a stable influence in your life as Richard at that point, how integral do you think that was to your success?
Oh, it was incredibly integral, to use your accent. Integral, to use mine. Although I like yours better. Integral. Because he wouldn't let, he felt it was his job to sort of take me down.
Right.
So it was rough. I would come home and boy, I got sort of, taken down. He would watch a fashion show and come backstage and everyone was congratulating me, kissing me. They were crying. And he would say, those blacks didn't match in look number 3. There were 2 different blacks. It was his job to just pull me down.
Didn't he once say to you, the women, they don't want to wear the clothes?
Well, Richard was, instrumental in he said one sentence to me that absolutely redirected my career. My first show at Gucci as creative director, when Maurizio Gucci was gone and Don Mello, who hired me, had left. It was my first show. I had complete control of it. My brain was still a little bit in Maurizio's concept of what the brand should be, which was an Italian Hermes. The clothes were not remotely sexy at all. And I had worked so hard on it, I didn't understand why it wasn't a hit. And we were in Milan, and Richard just said to me, somehow you've got to figure out how to make it sexy. The girls have to want to wear those clothes, and the girls don't want to wear those clothes. That was all I had to say. And I immediately thought, okay, I'm just going to forget about, Maurizio's vision, and I'm going to make clothes that I think are sexy and that people want to wear and, that I want to see people in. And so that's what I did.
Talk me through how you do that when suddenly, so it's women's wear. How do you go
or
right?
Men's, I did
or men's.
both.
But yeah, but how so what are...
Well, I'm looking at you right now, James.
Go on, okay.
And I think, okay, I want to see his pecs.
Well,
how are they going to look
I would too.
their best?
Okay, I'll have to come back in about 18 months.
How are they going to look their best? And then I'd say, okay, how are we going to make James's waist look its best?
Well,
Turn around, James. Let's look at your ass.
You've really picked a bad subject here.
How are we going to make that ass look a little bit tighter and higher? Not that your ass isn't tight and high. How are we going to make James look taller? Well, first of all, I want to cut your sweater open. I've seen you. We were just talking about it when you and I shared a plane flight one night, and you were very relaxed and had a drink, and I saw a really sexy, sensual side of you that you do not show the world.
Oh, God.
So,
this is really taking a turn.
Does James have hair on his chest?
He does not.
Okay, well, let's see that. Because, by the way, then you're very in fashion.
I'm not very hirsute.
Every time I use that, people say, what the hell does hirsute mean?
I'm really not hirsute at all.
Okay, so you don't have to wax, because right now, no one has hair. They don't have pubic hair. They don't have, no one, straight or gay. We're living in a hairless culture. You can have a beard, but boy, there's no body hair.
Is it ever coming back, the bush, do you think?
Once, I personally have to say, I think the bush is the way to go. When about 6 months after Richard died, maybe a little bit longer, my driver in Los Angeles decided to give me some advice. And he gave me a little trimmer called the ball burr.
Oh.
And he said, sir, you've got to get it together. He said, you're on the market now. Now, he had never seen my testicles, but he said, sir, you got to get it together. He said, this
is amazing.
This leaves no nicks. You can shave anywhere. You don't have to worry that anything's going to get caught, that anything's going to get clipped. Here it is. And it's called the ball burr. Or there was another one called Happy Balls. I'm not joking.
I just love that your driver felt like this was something he could talk about. I love this.
It's today.
Yeah.
You've got to have no hair. About 7 or 8 years ago, I did a shoot for a magazine, and I wanted to talk about our fear of male nudity. We use women that are almost nude to sell everything. Microwaves, washers and dryers, everything. But yet in our culture, we have this fear of male nudity. And so I did this issue of a magazine where they promised they weren't going to cover anything up. And I shot real people nude. In the end, they didn't have the guts to do it, and they stuck censored all over everything. But I had to make merkins for some of these guys because there was not a hair to be found on anyone's crotch.
Wow.
Straight, gay, truck driver, everything was groomed. So you are very in fashion, James. You don't have a hair on your body.
This is splendid.
We don't have to do the sack to crack wax.
We really don't.
No, you're done.
You have always had, and I've always loved this about you, a love of
bodies.
I would say all. If I'm thinking now about, just as you're talking now, it suddenly jolted me back to the opening sequence of Nocturnal Animals, which, if for anyone who hasn't seen it, are these incredibly voluptuous women dancing. Or, I think looking to camera, looking into the lens.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it's incredibly sexy. But I don't think many people, when they think of Tom Ford and they think of Gucci and they think of fashion, would think of a designer
who embraces
to embrace such
There
size.
is beauty in everything if you look at it. So much of what we consider beautiful is what we've been fed, and you can find beauty everywhere.
Well, let's talk about a possession.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a possession that you've chosen as significant in your life. What is the possession that you've chosen?
My friendship with you.
Stop. What is the possession that you've chosen?
Well, I chose a house. Now that sounds very spoiled, and yes, I am very, very lucky in life. It was a house that I owned in Los Angeles. It was designed by an architect called Richard Neutra. My degree from university is in architecture. I love architecture. And living in this house was like living in a piece of sculpture. There was never a day, there was never a moment that I didn't walk through this house and feel something. It was also a happy house. Good things happened in that house. We brought Jack home from the hospital in that house. Richard was healthy in that house. We had great parties in that house. I was always happy when I would, come from cold Paris and land in Los Angeles for a few weeks, and it was sunny and it was beautiful, and there were palm trees and there was a swimming pool, and we had this killer view. It was a possession that in a way I'm sad I let go of, but that was the past, and it's important to move on and create new memories. And so on the other hand, I guess I'm happy that I don't have it, but I'm happy that I was able to experience it. I look back at things now and can feel them more than I felt them when I was living them.
I mean, do you think now in this moment of your life you are able to be more present than you were perhaps in your 40s?
I'm trying to be, but I remember someone saying to me when I was younger that time just goes faster and faster as you get older, and it does. Decades fly by. In fact, people often tell me I have an obsession with death because I have, ever since I was a tiny kid, been very aware of it and aware of a clock ticking and aware of time and where I wanted to be at a particular time in my life.
Oh, really?
And I am exactly where I thought I would be and wanted to be as a kid in my life. I wanted a child desperately. Thank God that I had him at the time in my life that I did, because when I was younger, I was too obsessed with myself and my career and now I'm not, bored with myself. So I can really focus on another human being and another creature in a way that I couldn't when I was younger.
But did your decision to start making films, that must have been...
They're always there.
Really? You always wanted to make, you always wanted to direct and write?
Well, when I was very young, I thought I wanted to act, but I was too self-conscious. So I'm much happier on the other side of the camera. So, but it's storytelling. Fashion is a way of telling a story. But I feel that after 35 years, I've told that story. It's also permanent. A film is permanent. It's a little world sealed in a bubble, and it lasts forever. And you are in control. It's the closest thing to being God that one can be, I think. And I remember when I was making A Single Man, it was a very emotional experience for me. I put a lot of myself into that film.
Jim, let's be honest. What you and Jim had together was wonderful, but wasn't it really just a substitute for something else?
So is that what you really think after all these years? You think Jim was just some kind of substitute for real love?
I grafted my own personality onto the character that Colin plays, George, and Julianne Moore's character was very much based on my grandmother. I altered Christopher Isherwood's book quite a bit. However, I kept the central theme, which is about living in the present and being present. And I remember thinking, while I was making that film and after I made that film, I thought if anyone even ever needs to know anything about me or what I was like as a human being or what I cared about, watch that film, because everything about me is in that film.
Jim was not a substitute for anything. Do you understand? And there is no substitute for Jim anywhere!
It's a brilliant, brilliant piece of work, and
Thank you.
so assured for a first movie.
Thank you.
It's incredibly accomplished. We've asked you for a film that is significant in your life.
Ah, yes.
Tell us about the movie. I mean, if we're talking about movies that last forever, tell us about the movie that you've chosen.
Well, it was hard to choose because I have a favorite film in every genre from every decade. So it was hard. So I had to really think, what film have I watched the most in my life? And it would be George Cukor's version of The Women, which I believe was 1939. It was based on a play by Claire Booth Luce, which was from the 1920s. And it's an incredible film. There are 125 women in this film and not a single man. And the dialogue, something we've lost in film, dialogue is so quick. Every time you watch this film, you pick up on a line that maybe you didn't quite catch the first time.
Oh, Buck and I are tickled to death to be rid of the lot of them. The ingrate.
Cheer up, Flora. This is a new kind of lesson in amour.
That's right, Flora. And see to it that your next husband doesn't become financially independent.
Let's move on to a memory that you wanted to share with us, which I know won't be easy to talk about us, but tell us the memory that you've chosen for the show today.
The memory that I've chosen, and maybe, I don't know, I was hesitant to choose it, but the reason I've chosen it is because it's burned so clearly in my head, and it's the death of Richard. And it's because he died very suddenly and unexpectedly. We were watching television. He walked out of the room. He went upstairs. He collapsed. And I walked into the bathroom, and he had fainted quite a lot at this time because he had been ill for so long. And I heard the crash, and I thought, oh, God, he's fainted again. Okay, what are we going to have to do? And I went up, and his eyes were open, and there was an expression on his face, absolutely frozen. And at first I thought, okay, this is some sort of different fainting. Has he had a stroke? And then I immediately realized he was dead. And I tried to revive him. And I don't want to get too graphic, but that was not successful. And there is not a day that goes by that I do not see his face at that particular moment in time so clearly. I see it more when I'm in Los Angeles, living in the same house where it happened, walking through the same bathroom where it happened, seeing where he lay next to the bed where it happened, which is one reason I've left Los Angeles and moved. It's just... So I don't know that that's the kind of memory that you necessarily wanted or that people really want to hear about, but it is the most potent and pungent memory that maybe will fade a bit, but it was the most startling thing I've ever experienced in my life. He
was an extraordinary man.
He
Richard,
was.
And I
thank you. But he was.
I always felt lucky anytime I got to spend time with him. And I had, and still have, and I remember spending time with you and Richard and having such admiration for you as a couple, because I think what you were going through, Richard was unwell for a long time.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think you ever knew him when he wasn't unwell.
I didn't, but I saw him in stages of better health,
right,
and stages of worse health. And then there'd be other times where I'd perhaps just see you on your own, and I would be clear that Richard, I'm sure, would have been longing to be wherever that was. But you as a couple, I marveled at you as a couple. I thought you were, I was like, these are two people who I think for me and for Julia, who've been married for 10 years, we would look at you and think, well, that is the embodiment of how you grow with someone. I felt like you were never, ever standing still as a couple. Does that seem right? I felt like you were always evolving. Individually and collectively as a couple. And I think lots of relationships don't do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, we had an amazing 35 years together. And again, it flew by. I mean,
obviously his passing led to then you making some very big changes in your life. Tom Ford, this incredible brand, which you've now sold. So that part of your life has gone. How did that feel? I'm interested to know how it felt when you signed the piece of paper.
I don't know if I can even tell you how that felt because, my God, it felt great.
But did it not feel incredibly...
No.
Because No? Really? Because I think, well, it's your name.
None.
It's really?
No.
Go on.
At all.
Tell me.
So there's a moment in time where a brand... it separates from you. You know, I often would find myself saying, oh, yeah, well, am I wearing Tom Ford? Yeah, I'm wearing Tom Ford. Meaning, you know, I'm wearing the brand, not me. I know who I am, but am I wearing the brand? So once it gets to that point, and I felt I'd said everything I had to say in fashion, I thought, well, why not let that change in the brand happen now while I'm alive and have enough money to do whatever I want to do, which is make films. Clock is ticking. I'm 62. I've got 20 more years of hopefully being together mentally, maybe more, maybe less. And I want to do something new and something that I feel excited about creatively. So I've detached myself from that. When you sell your company, you have to realize that You no longer have any control over it at all. Things will be generated you may not like. You might not like the advertising. You might not like what happens to the store design. Maybe you will, if you're lucky. But that you have to let go of it. You know, when we die, we let go of everything. We let go of our houses. We let go of our friends. We let go of our children. We let go of all of it. We leave everything. So once you realize that, you realize also the important thing is to enjoy your time on the planet. And if those things are things you no longer enjoy, then let go of them. Let go of them now while you're alive and enjoy the rest of the time that you have.
Let's move on to your last selection. And I thought this was just wonderful. Let's talk about the person. Who is the person that you've chosen today and why?
Oh, that's so easy. It's my son, Jack. And I think most parents would say that. I mean, if I didn't have Jack, I don't really quite know what I would be living for right now. You know, I've had an incredibly full life. I remember a quote from Jacqueline Kennedy. In fact, I have many quotes in my head from Jacqueline Kennedy. But one quote was that, you know, when she realized she had cancer, and Caroline, if I'm misquoting this, I'm sorry about your mother, but she said, you know, I've had a great run, as though she'd been a horse, because of course she, you know, was very into horses. And I've had a great run. If I left now, the planet, I've had a great run. I've done so many things. I've had a terrific life. I've been incredibly lucky. I've been healthy. I've been in love with someone. I've had people in my life I loved. I've, you know, been able to be creative. I've had a great run. So if I didn't have Jack, I don't know that I would even feel the need to live, because it's not going to get any better. I could only hope that things might stay at the level that they already had been. But I've had enough. It was wonderful. But because I have Jack, I have something new, something to live for. I have something to look forward to, someone to impart, hopefully, a lot of the knowledge and things, you know, that I have learned over my life. And you know, so I live for Jack. And I think most parents feel that way, hopefully, about their kids. And he brings me so much joy, and I'm sure he will continue to bring me joy and frustration as, you know, it's an adventure. And so Jack is definitely the most important person in my life.
That is wonderful. It really is. Tom Ford, your place is your house in Santa Fe in New Mexico. Your music is Slave to Love by Brian Ferry. Your possession was the Richard Neutra designed house that you once owned in Los Angeles. Your film was The Women. Your memory was the passing of your partner, Richard Buckley. And your person is your son, Jack. Thank you so much for sharing this life of yours. It was an absolute thrill.
Thank you, James.
Next up is this.
I'm Mark Duplass, and welcome to this life of mine. Our love is deep, and we're very sensitive brothers, but if you need me to kill somebody for you and drag them away in a white van, I will do that. I am here for you with some rope, $350 in cash, and a shovel, if required. I can see myself in my early 20s driving myself so hard, pushing through the depression, pushing through the anxiety. And I look back and I'm just like, oh God, I wish somebody had just put their hand on my shoulder and been like, I think what's happening here is you need to go see someone. When I get into a dinner party, what I do is I'm like a computer.
Yeah.
I assess the rhythm.
Scanning all of it.
And I'm like, okay, I'm going to figure out boop, 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 boop. Here's the assimilation. Here's the version of Mark Duplass who shows up tonight.
In a dinner party, that's me in a cab.
Yeah.
If you haven't subscribed to Lemonada Premium yet, now is the perfect time. You can listen to This Life of Mine completely ad-free. Plus, you'll unlock exclusive quickfire rounds of questions with all of my guests. They're all in 2 minutes or less. Just tap that subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or head to lemonadapremium.com to subscribe on any other app. Or you can listen ad-free on Amazon Music with your Prime membership. That's lemonadapremium.com. Don't miss out.